Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Congregation Micah. I'm Philip Rice. They do call me Rabbi Flip, and we want to thank all of you for being here today. The reason for our gathering is unique. It's special. It's holy. There are a few folks here that will speak to that. The importance of what we as a community have created for our city and for our state and for Holocaust education and beyond. We will learn briefly how the project was conceived and fashioned, the motivation, the objectives, and the significance of the art. I want to welcome you to Micah and describe to each of you what we're really doing here today by telling you a story. It's a story that informs my theology, which is really just a fancy way of saying that it illustrates what I believe. It's a true story. It was described in the testimony of a German engineer who gave it during the Nuremberg trials after World War II. Once, the engineer said, he saw rows and rows of naked Jews lined up in a forest at the edge of a pit. And standing among them was an old woman with hair as white as snow, and in her arms she held a 1-year-old baby. And she stood at the end of this pit, this mass grave into which she and the others would soon be pushed into and shot down and buried. And the baby was crying. Where was his mother? She was too old to be his mother. To whom did he belong? The German engineer testified that he saw the old woman cuddle the baby close and sing him a song. And then, as his crying subsided, she tickled him and she made funny faces, and the baby began to laugh with delight. And he was laughing when the Germans came forward and finished him off. So you may ask, what difference did it make, really, if that baby boy spent the last moments of his life sobbing in fear or laughing with delight? I mean, after all, he was going to be shot and killed either way. To me, it makes a difference. To that old woman, it made a difference. So much so that she somehow miraculously found the strength to give love and comfort even in the midst of her own pain. And that is largely what we're doing here this morning. We're telling a story, a true story, through art, about what we believe. And that is why I can hear and share this terrible and yet beautiful story and say, I believe. I believe that God acts through people. I believe that God was with that little boy at the end of his life because a woman's loving arms cradled him. I believe that God shepherded the souls that are George and Frances Cutler Hahn because other people did. See, God is not like far away and remote and inaccessible. God is, in fact, close at hand, speaking through our mouths and being revealed, unveiled, by our actions. God is here, but it actually all depends on us. Because God doesn't have hands. So if we're going to honor, if we're going to memorialize the past through art, it is human hands like those of the artist Teresa Dyer that will create it. And if we're going to accurately communicate to the next generation in the hopes of making the future better, it's our human aptitudes to teach, like Education Director Julie Greenberg's ability to write creative curriculum, that will have the greatest impact. If we are to appropriately share the painful life narratives, like that of Francis or George, it's our human mouths that will speak the stories, not God's. So if the lonely and the frightened are to be comforted, like that baby from the story, it is our embrace, not God's, that will comfort them. And what I'm describing is actually an ancient Jewish idea about God. Atem Adai, you are my witnesses, says the Holy One, and I am God. And the Midrash, the stories the rabbis set, they put a spin on it. They say that this verse from Isaiah, it means when you are my witnesses, I am God, and when you are not my witnesses, then I am not God. What we are all doing here today is acting as God's witnesses. So I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank our speakers in advance. And we're going to begin this morning by inviting Micah member and Tennessee State Representative John Ray Clemens forward to share a few words.
Putting this here so I can hear you better.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rabbi Flip. I sincerely appreciate it, and I sincerely appreciate the invitation to speak at this momentous occasion, and it's wonderful to see so many of you here today on this beautiful occasion. I'm here to bring greetings from the state of Tennessee, and as Rabbi Flip said, I'm also a proud member of the congregation Micah community, and so it's even more special for me to be here on this day with my family. As I was sitting on the floor of the Tennessee House of Representatives on Thursday morning, I was trying to think what I could possibly say on such an occasion other than just giving my general welcoming. And all I could think about was how fitting that this work of art will sit outside of this building. Because thanks to Rabbi Flip and Rabbi Laurie and all of you who make up this wonderful community and congregation, this is a place that is welcoming to families like mine and others. It's a place of loving and caring, and it's a safe space. It's also a place where a state legislator can come to recover after a week in the Tennessee General Assembly, which is badly needed. But this is a place of refuge where we can all learn and grow together. And I do believe, for that reason, that this work of art belongs at this location. And as the rabbi said, God does work through us. So I think each of us should have the opportunity and take the opportunity as we walk by this work of art every time we enter this building, and let it be a reminder that God works through us, to keep our arms open, our minds open, and our hearts open to everyone seeking refuge from whatever challenges they may be facing in their life. Thank you very much for the honor to be here with you today, and I'm glad to see my friend Vice Mayor Jim Schulman joining us as well. Good morning. Thank you.
I don't want to put you on the spot. You want to come say hi? Come say hi. I got a slide for it.
Well, good morning and hi, and then I'll sit back down. I guess on behalf of the city, I know how important this is. I listened to the rabbi, I listened to Representative Clemens. It is it's very important that we are here today and that we understand what we are doing. Again, I don't have prepared remarks, but on behalf of the city of Nashville, this is a very important day and a very important thing that we are about to do. So thank you for allowing me to say hi and allowing me to stand up here for just a minute and just appreciate being here. Thank you.
We want to offer a special thanks also to Alyssa Trackman of the Tennessee Holocaust Commission, and if she wouldn't mind coming forward, they do such good work, and they are sponsoring our reception today. And is she here? I don't see her. On behalf of the Tennessee Holocaust Commission, I want to thank you all very much for coming. Know that they did sponsor the little sweets and treats that we will enjoy after we dedicate the statue. I'm going to tell another story. You know, her name really was Fanny, and she's a child survivor of the Holocaust. really one of too many examples of the horrific consequences when fear and hatred are used to divide people, and the majority, they just stand by, they do nothing, or even worse, they collaborate. She was 2 years old when Hitler marched into Paris on June 14th, 1940. And her parents, if I say them right, Cyril Lindenberg and Shlomo Kalman Kahane, were Jews that were actually from Poland, but they were seeking a better life in France. Her great aunt had prepared papers for them to immigrate to the United States, but the borders in France closed before they could leave. If there had been less anti-Semitism in the US, maybe her parents would have survived. When the Germans entered Paris, her parents understood the danger, and to save her, they put her in a children's home when she was 3 years old. They hid her Jewish identity. She was confused. She felt alone, abandoned. If her parents hadn't have done this, she probably would have been sent to a concentration camp and killed. And then after the war, she was taken to an orphanage where she got a beautiful doll. By the summer of that year, they were told to pack their bags to leave their toys behind, and she never saw that doll again. Her father, who had fought in the resistance, survived the war but was dying, and he told her that his aunt would bring her to the US and take care of her. At this point, she was 7 years old. She was the youngest in a group of about 20 refugees that were brought here by HIAS, the Hebrew Immigration Aid Society, which still helps refugees, a crisis that continues even at this very moment. And her great aunt and uncle, Jacob and Rose Schlesinger, well, they didn't speak French. Upon her arrival in Philadelphia, her family started to call her Frances instead of Fanny, her birth name. She thought it was because she was from France, so she just called them Americans. She became a U.S. citizen at age 15. She earned a BA from Temple University. She married Ken Cutler in 1968. She gave birth to a daughter of her own, Cynthia. They moved to Miami in 1985, where she worked at the University of Miami and earned an MA in liberal studies concentrating on the Holocaust. After Ken passed and she retired, she moved here to Nashville to live near her daughter, and that has been a great blessing for us. Dr. George T. Hahn is a professor emeritus of mechanical engineering and materials science at Vanderbilt University. He obtained his doctorate from MIT, his master's from Columbia, and his bachelor's in engineering from NYU. He's also a fellow in the American Society of Metals and has published well over 150 papers in the fields of fracture mechanics, rolling contact, and riveted connections. I found all of this out when I Googled him this week, which means if the rabbi only found out this week that he went to those schools, that George is the quintessential Micah member because he's humble. Sometime after George lost his wife, he started bringing flowers to my wife, Rabbi Lori, on a regular basis. I wasn't nervous, I was curious. Rabbi Lori introduced him to Frances Cutler, and not long after officiated at their wedding. They have been married for 12 years. They traveled to Israel with us in 2011, where they walked through the memorial at Yad Vashem, recalling the 1.5 million Jewish children whose lives were brutally terminated. George has his own story, but the most pertinent part today is that in honor of his 90th birthday, Francis decided to spearhead the creation of a sculpture in memory of the children of the Shoah on our grounds here at Congregation Micah for the entire world to share. Ladies and gentlemen, they are both with us here today on our pulpit, Dr. George T. and Fanny Frances Cutler Hahn. Please come join us at the podium. Want the thing to stand?
Yeah.
It's rare I feel tall. It's not a bar mitzvah. Okay.
So before I speak, I'm going to introduce Teresa Dyer. First of all, welcome everyone for being here and for joining us, both virtually and in person. It is my pleasure to introduce Teresa Dyer, our sculptor. Teresa has a BFA in design from the University of North Texas and a BFA in architecture from the University of Tennessee, culminating at the University of Manchester, England. She maintains an architectural practice here in Nashville. We are so fortunate to have found Teresa, who brought our dream to reality with this outstanding statue. She was so responsive in translating and expressing our thoughts and feelings. She did extensive research to get each detail right: the knapsack, the hair bow, the shoes, and the suitcase, which is based on my own little suitcase. Especially powerful is Teresa's depiction of the energy and momentum of the children and the emotions on their faces. Children fleeing, an image, unfortunately, that we see today in the Ukraine. We hope you will come to love these two precious children as much as we do. It was a joy, Teresa, to work with you, and George and I thank you so very much for this magnificent statue. Please welcome Teresa Dyer.
Hello, everybody. It is a great honor for me to be here today for the dedication of the children of Shoah. When Rabbi Laurie introduced me to Francis and George Hahn almost 2 years ago, in July of 2020 on a Zoom call, I knew that this project would be a privilege that I would always cherish. We began with conversations, loaned books, memories from Francis, and ideas from Francis and George. This sculpture reflects their vision. A lot of research went into the project, reading many accounts of the horrors of the Holocaust, reviewing hundreds of historic photographs, searching for clothing that children wore in that time period in Europe. For instance, the backpack the younger brother carries is representative, as is the sister's suitcase. Her suitcase is, in fact, exactly like the one Frances brought back with her when she came to the United States as a little girl, and still has today. This research went into sketches and solidified into a maquette that became the final sculpture. The composition portrays siblings in flight. The sister turns to her younger brother, urging him to hurry, him not fully understanding what the older sister knows. I am deeply grateful for the great privilege to have worked with Congregation Micah and Francis and George to create a memorial for the children of Shoah. Thank you.
Good morning. Let me try to place Miss Dyer's heart-rendering sculpture into context. In 1941, the Nazis planned and implemented a genocide. The deliberate killing of an ethnic group with the aim of destroying their religion and culture. The targets of their genocide were 6 million Jewish men, women, and children. The word genocide falls short of conveying the barbarism and inhumanity that attended the 4-year bloodbath. For this reason, the Jewish community has adopted 2 other names for this particular genocide. One is the Greek word Holocaust, which connotates mass death and destruction by fire. The other, now favored, is the Hebrew word Shoah, meaning catastrophic destruction. When the horrors of the Shoah became known, the world resolved never again, It would no longer stand by and allow another genocide to proceed. Yet genocides keep happening with little active interference. In Africa, in Syria, in Myanmar, this week, President Zelensky called the violence in the Ukraine a genocide, and he cites the resolve never again in his appeals for help. It's difficult to grasp the enormity of the loss of life and suffering attending these conflicts. One thing is true. Children are the most vulnerable victims of genocides. They are the weakest participants. They are traumatized by the violence and unable to protect themselves. Children can't even grasp why they are being persecuted. Ms. Dyer's work exposes the trauma suffered by two young victims of the Shoah. The two children have abandoned their home on short notice and with meager possessions. Their parents are not close by. The older sister knows where they have to go. The young brother is unsure. He's not prepared to leave. When will mom and dad return? Who's going to look after them? The situation is frightening. Their world is about to turn upside down. My wife, Frances, can testify that even children heading for a safe harbor are scarred by separation from parents. And in 1942, the safe harbors were rarely within reach. Frances and I hope the memorial will remind us of the 1.5 million children who lost their lives in the Shoah, those that survived, and the plight of child genocide victims, past and present. Thank you.
I'm back. We have waited almost 2 years to dedicate this statue. When we started this project, we had no clue how long it would take or if we would live to see its completion. So we are very thrilled to be here today. Next month, George and I are looking forward to celebrating our 13th wedding anniversary, thanks to Rabbi Laurie and Bonnie Mattis, who brought us together. How did this statue happen? Rabbi Flip already gave you some clues. In 2020, we were planning to celebrate George's 90th birthday at a festive luncheon. But as many of you have also experienced, COVID canceled our plans. To commemorate George's birthday in a special way, we chose to erect a statue in memory of the children of the Shoah. This stunning statue is a silver lining out of COVID. We are so thankful to Rabbi Laurie and Rabbi Flip and all of you who helped bring this beautiful statue to life, a project very close to our hearts, me as a child survivor of the Holocaust, and George as a refugee escaping Nazi Austria just in time in 1938. There are many ways to tell the story of the Holocaust. Comics such as Mouse, diaries like Anne Frank's, films such as Schindler's List, the Anne Frank Ballet commissioned by Mrs. Eskin and performed by our own Nashville Ballet Company, the Paperclip Project at Whitwell, poems, survivors' testimonies such as Elie Wiesel's, and original songs by musicians such as our own wonderful Lisa Silver. Lisa wrote the words and the music to the song, The Children of the Shoah, especially for us today, that you will hear later. Statues are one way of telling the story of the Holocaust. We hope this statue will pique children's curiosity, awaken empathy, and lead to more learning and understanding and the doing of good deeds. Of course, we also want this for adults as well. We know we are in capable hands with Julie Greenberg, the Tennessee Holocaust Commission, and Congregation Micah in making this happen. Thank you again to everyone for your help and generosity, and to all the people at Congregation Micah who made this day possible, including Lynn Hetty and Freddie B. I don't know how to say his last name. Bye.
Freddie, she meant to say Falamandari. It means thank you in Albanian. I learned it. She actually has a background teaching high school and middle school English, history, and journalism, but the truth is she continues to write curriculum. She's got a master's from the theological studies from Vanderbilt Divinity School, and Julie Greenberg brings our community not really only expertise in Jewish studies, but extraordinary sensitivity to and familiarity with other faith traditions. She's our education director. She's coming up here now. She provides an authentic, creative, and substantive curriculum for people of all ages, and she's going to share a few words about the statue's educational significance.
He forgot to add that I'm the luckiest person on the Micah staff because I get to work with our children. So on this day, I want to especially direct our attention to our section over here to my right. Most grateful because, Francis, all of the effort that you all have invested in this gift that will continue to speak to generations long after we are all gone, everyone in this room. We know that it's most important that this story land in the hearts and hands of these students. And I feel very confident that that's exactly what is going to happen. And, Judaism is such a rich, deep tradition that brings such joy. It's actually an interesting experience here on a Sunday morning in this space. I was a little disoriented this morning because normally we're having family service and it's a very different feeling. Along with the joys, of course, we have the very sobering task, the crucial and challenging task of teaching this history. And it is a unique experience to grow up as a Jewish child, I think, and to internalize these stories and these horrors, but also to find ways to focus on the future and to focus on ways to ensure that this does not happen again. And so I feel particularly grateful to you all today that I know you will become the docents, you will become the teachers, really, of the curriculum we develop around the sculpture. I'm so grateful it is outside of my office window and that I will have that memory every day of what we've together as a community accomplished to make sure that your legacy, Francis and George, and so many others live on. So thank you very much, and a special gratitude to our kids who are here with us today.
We wouldn't be Micah if we didn't have a song. We wouldn't be Music City. And so Miss Lisa Silver has created more of her genius, commissioning this song for this very occasion.
Talk another second, Rabbi Flip, because this just
It's a
fell.
beautiful song. The words are not in front of you, but she's going to sing them.
Children of the Shoah are not to be forgotten. Their stories live within us from year to passing year. Though their memories are haunting and their journeys ever daunting, the children of the Shoah will always be right here. In our hearts, in our minds, in our deeds, in our words, in each little act of kindness, the love will be preserved. in our art, in our music, in our poetry and photos, to the children of the Shoah, your stories will be heard. The children of the Shoah live through things that we can't fathom, escaping from their countries to unfamiliar lands. Some perished as young children, some grew to raise up families, holding on to heartaches while holding on to hands. But in our hearts, in our minds, in our deeds, in our words, in each little act of kindness, the love will be preserved. In our art, in our music, in our poetries and photos, to the children of the Shoah, your stories will be heard. To the children of the Shoah, your stories will be heard.
Thank you, Miss Lisa. There are several people in this room, and some who are not, who made what is now about to happen possible. There are the dreamers who conceived of it and spearheaded it, the artistic team that executed it. There's the MICA staff and the lay leadership that helped to implement it all. President Howard Baum, landscape architect Sari Barton, building and grounds aficionado Andy Saul. These are just to name a few. There are also folks who funded it. Individuals, couples, families who donated large amounts of money so that we could create this living witness, this memorial, this teaching, this storytelling piece of art. Some of them were no doubt touched by the notion of what we were trying to do. Others have their own personal connections to the Shoah. They saw this as an opportunity to be part of something special. And still others had no connection, but understood the importance of telling the story, a story that is still unfolding. In a moment, we are going to proceed outside to officially unveil and dedicate the sculpture. But this moment belongs actually to the donors. It's not our custom at MICA to single you out so that others are not made to feel less. But we would be remiss not to thank each and every one of you for making this possible. May God continue to bless you and your generosity. The physical memorial that you have helped to fund will serve as a reminder of the need to protect and teach our children and all children so that indeed the future might be brighter than the past. Here's what's going to happen now. I'm going to invite you, not yet, to rise, and we're going to open those back doors. There are two ways to get to the sculpture. You can proceed down the hallway, past the bathrooms, and through the Eden Room. You will be seduced to try some of the snacks. They are available to you. You can also go out the front doors and go around the side if you saw where the statue was covered on your way in. Either way, we are going to gather just for a short 2-minute blessing and unveiling. And then we're going to invite you to view it. You're allowed to touch it, and you are more than welcome to enjoy the snacks. I want to thank you all again for being here, and I'll see you just in 2 or 3 minutes outside. Thanks. If you're watching virtually, this would be a good time to switch over to the Zoom. We're going to start.
do you remember any of the songs? Do you remember any of the songs? Can you lead us in them?